Gavin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. Now, we've got salon.com yet again, and let's start off with this. Giving a platform to their resident pedophile, Todd Nickerson. We've got on the flip side, Portland College lecturing young students about how they owe black people $20 trillion in reparations for slavery. Why is the leftist media lecturing white people about how they should be ashamed to be white while telling us to be proud of pedophiles just because they haven't molested children yet?
Because their agenda here is sabotage. It started out maybe as creative destruction. Let's tear it down and then rebuild society in our own image. But now it's just, you know what, screw rebuilding. Let's just blow it up. They have no plan here. They just want to wreck our culture. And everything that you should be ashamed of, you should be proud of. And everything you should be proud of, you should be ashamed of. And I realized today, I was talking about this with Mike Cernovich, we just need to put society in a Word doc and go edit, find, replace, look up shame and pride, and just replace all. Because everything that's white male, even we had a guy here, Nick Solares in New York. He was doing restaurant reviews. He just lost his job because he may have been associating with skinheads 30 years ago when he was 18. Conversely, we have this Todd Nickerson saying, hey, don't call me a child molester. I'm only a pedophile who babysits a 5-year-old.
I mean, if you had kids, would you let him anywhere near them? And the other thing about it is, did you see the video that they used in this latest article of him? They had him describing his fantasies about this 5-year-old girl, about how he had to relieve himself in the bathroom. And the background B-roll to this footage, like a 5-year-old girl dancing and twirling around. I mean, that to me was as sick as what he was actually saying, right?
I am so glad you brought that up because I was obsessed with that too. The way they frame it, they've clearly stated their agenda, which is we understand his sexuality. There you go. Oh my God, it makes me want to vomit just to look at. He calls her precocious and independent, and we show this video of her dancing around like they're trying to convey how he would be horny for her. It's infuriating, and it really shows how far we've come. And it also shows, by the way, we started out on relatively reasonable grounds here. We started out with gays are not monsters, lesbians are not monsters. I agree. And then we started going into gay marriage, and we said, well, I don't know if Christians should have to be part of these ceremonies. And it just keeps, as the Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty said, it keeps morphing out from there. And now we have to accept that this guy wants to prey on our daughters, but is resisting. We're supposed to give him a Purple Heart because he's resisted preying on toddlers? No.
I mean, it's an illustration, again, of how low the left sets the bar for humanity. And that video is absolutely chilling. They're basically romanticizing the lust towards a 5-year-old girl. They're not talking about it in sober terms, even if you think that's permissible in the first place. It's like this dreamy footage of a 5-year-old girl twirling around while he's talking about masturbating over her in a toilet. And they treat this as a serious social justice cause. And he's allowed to have those. He should be respectful and he should prosper now in society because he's achieved the goal of not molesting a child. And like you said, people are being fired for having conservative political opinions at the same time. I know somebody in a top university, just found out yesterday, who was hauled into a meeting and basically threatened with being fired because he retweeted me and he retweeted a London Telegraph article about Caitlyn Jenner. Those opinions are not permissible in today's society, yet it's permissible to lust after a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah, I saw you tweeted that, and I wasn't remotely surprised. I mean, Britain is the place where Jack Buckby of Liberty GB now was kicked out of university as a student because he dared object to a professor who sympathized with the people who decapitated Lee Rigby. He said, I don't like you glorifying these Islamic terrorists, and he was asked to leave campus. We just had a guy here, I'm not into sports, but he's an ex-pitcher who put up a Facebook meme about creeps being in your bathroom, trannies. and he's off of ESPN now for good. It really is an upside down world. And you start looking at the data and you go, wait a minute, I'm noticing a pattern here. Everything that is depraved and wrong and sick is good, and everything that is good, we should be ashamed of. White males, we built society. We separated church and state. We didn't end slavery. I mean, sorry, we didn't begin slavery. We ended it. How about
We'll be back with Gavin McInnes after the break. Stay right there, Gavin. We are back on the Alex Jones Show, this Thursday edition. And before we go back to our guests, I want to remind you to go to InfoWarsStore.com. Of course, next month we've got Bilderberg coming up. Again, we're sending 3 of our reporters, myself included, over to Germany. The flights, the hotels, the equipment, the food, everything that goes with it doesn't come free. Somebody has to pay for that. And of course, with your great support, we've been able to dispatch reporters all over America, different hotspots in the world even, to cover these breaking stories, to cover these big events, to challenge the mainstream media right there on the ground. And your support is much appreciated, which is why we insist, we plead with you to go to InfoWarsStore.com and check out the products. We've got 20% off Survival Shield. We've got Anthroplex special deals on that. We've got the water filters. And of course, free shipping on every order over $50. Again, that fuels our tank. That allows us to challenge the mainstream media narrative with your support at InfoWarsStore.com. Going back to Gavin McInnes. Gavin, I just want to get onto the interview you did with Jesse Hughes here in a moment. But first, he kind of had to recant. He had to back away from some of the claims he made in the aftermath of the Paris massacre, but we'll get to that in a second. We've seen that, you know, the left only succeeds when it does get people to recant, when it forces people to apologize, because as soon as you refuse to apologize, they completely lose their power. So is this how we win, you know, by leaving them no targets to feed on but each other?
Exactly. It's the grievous industry is fueled by capitulation. Apologies is their gasoline. And the less you capitulate, the less power they have. I'm reminded of Sarah Silverman, where she had some joke that involved the word chinks, where she said, I wrote I hate chinks, and then to get out of jury duty, I crossed it out and I wrote I love chinks. The American Asian Society demanded an apology, and she accused them of going pee-pee in her Coke. Boom. We never heard from them again. That was the end of that. But when you apologize, like Brett Ratner, he said, rehearsals are for fags at a Q&A for his movie Tower House. He apologized profusely for that. He was then forced to go on an apology tour of all of America. And I noticed this when I got in trouble for saying that if you have a sex change, you're not a woman. I refused to apologize, right? And what I did was, it's the same as locking these rats in a room. When they have no food, they end up cannibalizing each other. So I was sort of running up the mountain away from these nuts, these mentally ill homosexuals. And I noticed that when I stopped reacting to them, and by the way, reacting, I was just insulting. I never apologized. They started cannibalizing each other. Jim Goad calls it the cannibalization of the left. And they started, one of them told another one, I hope you drink bleach and die, and was kicked out of Out Magazine or something like that. So the secret to this problem is to stop giving them power. And the way you stop giving them power is you stop apologizing, you stop being ashamed, and you start being proud. We should be as proud as these pedophiles.
Well, I mean, we need to reassert these beliefs, these principles back into the mainstream because, I mean, if we've got our own media platforms, you know, we're responsible to nobody, basically. We're not Kurt Schilling. We're not going to get fired by some big network. So we can basically say what we want. But the fear is with people who have just got regular jobs, like, you know, the individual I mentioned earlier. So it's about setting that example, isn't it? It's about not apologizing, not flouncing, not doing, you know, I'd respect Stephen Fry in many ways, but he just quit Twitter. He basically flounced. That was the wrong thing to do. We need to reassert that our beliefs are part of the mainstream. They're completely sensible, logical. They shouldn't be decried as hate speech or triggering or insulting, because then that gives people in the regular working world more confidence to espouse the same beliefs, correct?
Exactly. And I get a lot of trouble from the far right with this. I'm against anonymity. You use your real name. I use my real name. If people think we're faking or lying, go look at our body of work for decades. You should get in trouble. You should get fired. you should become a pariah because they can't arrest us all. What they're doing right now is they're isolating the few brave ones and vilifying us and getting us fired and making us into lepers. Well, we all have to become lepers, and then all of a sudden they become the lepers because we know they're a minority. They're just a very loud, very shrill minority, and they're dominating the majority by, quite frankly, being braver than us. We have to stand up to them and say, my name is Gavin McInnes. I am not ashamed of being a white male, and I think your behavior is disgusting.